Empress Alara Veshery's stylus hovered above the treaty seal, its tip gleaming under the vaulted chamber's crystal chandeliers. Chancellor Mira Varun's voice cut through the assembled council, like a vibroblade, precise and unyielding. The neighboring Krell Dominion masses fleets at our border your supremacy. This alliance, binding humanity's envoy to your lineage, secures their anomalous warp tech and averts annihilation. Sign, and the Imperium endures. Zalara's frilled crest flickered faintly, a ripple of sapphire against obsidian scales betraying the storm within. Duty chained her hand downward, pressing the seal into the iridescent parchment with a hiss of evaporating ink. The chamber's holographic projectors flared, broadcasting the act across 1,000 systems. Empress Alara, unbowed sovereign of the Vishari, yoked to a primitive upstart species for survival. Whispers slithered among the nobles, traditionalists in their embroidered robes, eyes narrowed like predators scenting weakness. She straightened, her four-fingered grip tightening on the throne's armrests carved from void-forged alloy. The treaty binds. Let the human come. Protocol demands witness. The great doors groaned open, admitting Commander Jonah Reyes under escort of 6 obsidian-armored guards. He strode forward unhelmeted, his compact frame clad in the scarred pressure suit of a rescue survivor. No finery, no deference beyond a curt nod to the throne. The council's murmurs swelled. Humans were relics, soft-fleshed scavengers who'd clawed into galactic notice by sheer accident of their world's debris fields yielding warp crystals. This one had plucked Princess Lice from a collapsing orbital during the Krell skirmish, a feat dismissed as mammalian frenzy rather than skill. Jonah halted at the circle's edge, his dark eyes scanning the chamber without awe. Empress, I'm here as envoy, not trophy. His voice, amplified by the translator orb hovering at his collar, carried flat, uninflected, no trill of subservience, no ritual bow. A guard shifted forward instinctively, pikes humming. Zalara's gaze locked on him, dissecting the anomaly. Broad shoulders unmarked by the frailty reports claimed, stance steady amid the right's oppressive gravity fields. Custom demanded he kneel, parade his rescue a spectacle for the hollow feeds. Yet he stood, refusing the script. During the opening rites, the resonant chants invoking ancestral voids, Kalera paused mid-gesture, her raised palm freezing the chorus. Her crest dimmed to velvet black, a private signal amid the pomp. She leaned toward Captain Thorne, her Shadow Guard commander, voice a silken thread lost in the echoes. Maintain distance. No prodding this one into display. Observe. Thorne's multifaceted eyes widened fractionally, mandibles clicking in silent query, but he obeyed with a subtle ripple of his armored plates. The guards eased back a pace, pikes lowering, a visible fracture in the wall of dismissal that encircled humans like vermin. Nobles exchanged glances. Mira's frill flared crimson, her claws tapping the podium in restrained ire. The rites concluded in strained harmony, incense coils dissipating into the vaulted air. Xalara rose, her robes of void silk whispering like distant stars. Duty compelled the formality, yet this concession felt heavier than the treaty itself. An unspoken nod to the human's audacity. Commander Reyes, she intoned, voice carrying the Imperium's ancient timbre. Approach for audience. Your deed merits voice, if not spectacle. Jonah advanced without flourish, stopping precisely at protocol's line, close enough for her heightened senses to catch the faint salt tang of his skin, the steady thrum of a pulse untroubled by the chamber's psychic dampeners. Up close, he was sturdier than Hollow suggested. Calloused hands, a faint scar tracing his jaw from some forgotten fray. Thank you, Empress. The rescue was teamwork. My squad and your beacon tech. Less is safe. That's what counts. Mira interjected smoothly, her voice a velvet blade. A fortuitous spasm of endurance, Commander. Vishari records note humans persist where logic bids rest, yet tradition weighs heavier than anomalies. Her eyes gleamed, appraising him as one might a flawed gem. Zalara silenced her with a glance, crest steady. Speak your intent, human. The treaty names you liaison, ceremonial, binding. Jonah met her gaze evenly, no flinch under the throne's aura. Intent simple. Make this alliance work. Krell won't wait for debates. I've reviewed your fleet manifests. Strong hulls, precise volleys. Pair that with human improv on the fly. We hold the line. He gestured minimally, as if plotting a casual drill rather than imperial salvation. No boast, just fact, layered, with an ease that bypassed her court's layered indirection. The council stirred. Such directness bordered on insolence, yet it pierced the fog of ritual like a lance. Zalara felt a flicker. Curiosity, unbidden. Humans multitasked salvage ops across debris storms, piecing wrecks mid-firefight. Reports confirmed it, but witnessing the calm unnerved her. She inclined her head, the barest concession. Noted. Council, dismissed to subchambers, we reconvene at dusk. As nobles filed out, a delegation of traditionalists, led by Lord Cale Voss, his robes heavy with ancestral sigils, blocked the aisle. Mira fell in beside them, her presence galvanizing. Your supremacy, Cale intoned, unrolling a crystalline scroll that hummed with archived law. We petition under the Third Void Accords. Ancient statutes forbid interspecies unions. Lineage pure as the progenitor void, untainted by lesser evolutions. This treaty profanes the throne. Negotiations must halt. Gasps rippled. Holodrones captured every quiver of frill and scale. Mira's crest pulsed triumph. Here was the lever to pry the human loose, preserve Vesheri bloodlines from dilution. Zalara's mind raced. The Krell fleets were no bluff, their ion barrages shredding outposts even now. Rejection invited war. Concession eroded her dynasty's ritual core. Jonah shifted minutely beside her, silent but alert, reading the room's tension like a tactical overlay, his posture adapting without strain. Zalara's voice rang clear, authority cracking the chamber's hush. Petition received, yet protocol endures. To freeze options and bind parties, I order a provisional engagement ceremony. At dawn, envoys witness, oaths provisional, reversible by council vote post-Krell accord. Her crest flared imperial gold, unyielding. It was a masterstroke. Tradition weaponized to stall dissent, forcing traditionalists into the right they decried while locking Jonah's humans to the table. Mira's frill spasmed, shock rippling her scales. Admiration warring with outrage. Your supremacy, this endures, Solera cut in. Eyes on Jonah. He nodded once, grave respect in the tilt of his head, no trace of presumption. For the first time, she wondered if the human's steady gaze held not defiance, but alliance. Cale bowed stiffly, scroll retracting with a whine, but his delegation's murmurs promised deeper coils. As the chamber emptied, Zalara lingered on the throne, Thorn at her flank. Watch him closely, Captain, not as threat, but potential. Thorn's mandibles parted in a rare rasp of approval. He does not falter supremacy, like void wind, unseen yet carving stone. Jonah departed under lighter escort, his steps measured, leaving the air charged with unspoken shifts. Xalara traced the treaty seal, its glow fading. Duty had compelled the signature. Now, curiosity stirred beneath propriety's armor. The human refused spectacle, and in that refusal, she'd glimpsed something the stars had long overlooked. Dawn's ceremony loomed, a fragile bridge over chasms of tradition and threat. And in its light, empires might bend or break. Chancellor Mira Varun's claws clicked sharply against the obsidian council slab, drawing every gaze in the vaulted reception hall. Empress, the treaty's ratification hangs by a thread of unproven faith, she declared, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with calculated fervor. This human, Commander Reyes, represents a species we scarcely comprehend. Demand proof of his reliability, or risk the Imperium's sacred lineage on alien whims. Zalara sat motionless upon the dais, her iridescent scales catching the hall's lumen globes in a cascade of imperial azure. The assembled courtiers, Vishari nobles in their ritual sashes, allied envoys from fringe worlds, leaned forward, the air thick with the scent of spiced vapor and unspoken rivalries. Dawn's ceremony approached, its ratification rites mere heartbeats away, yet Mira's challenge struck at the alliance's core. Her own mandated partnership with this offworlder, Jonah Reyes, standing resolute at the hall's periphery in his unadorned human uniform. She felt the weight of it, protocol's unyielding lattice pressing against her resolve. Publicly, she must embody the Vishari sovereign, unflinching, dynastic. Privately, wariness coiled in her gut. Humans were endurance myths from frontier tales, but untested in her court's serpentine games. Speak your proofs, Chancellor. Solara commanded, her voice a silken blade, projecting calm authority. The treaty binds us to necessity, not blind trust. Mira pivoted toward Jonah, her tail lashing once in disdain. Then let him demonstrate. A liaison must prove more than survival in void rescue. What skills does he bring to guard our princess's future or our thrones? Jonah stepped forward unbidden, his posture straight but devoid of bravado, eyes scanning the hall with quiet assessment. Zalara noted it, no deference beyond a nod to her dais, yet no insolence. He opened his mouth to respond, when chaos erupted. A side alcove exploded in a shriek of alarms, acrid smoke billowing as a cluster of hovering service drones malfunctioned, their payloads of ceremonial crystal shattering into razor shards. Courtiers screamed, stampeding toward the exits in a wave of scaled bodies and flailing limbs. One noble clutched a gashed arm, blood sap welling. Another collapsed, shards embedded in her thigh. Panic rippled outward, protocol shattering like the crystals. Zalara surged to her feet, signaling her guards, but the hall devolved into frenzy. Then Jonah moved, fluid, decisive. Ignoring the noble's retreat, he vaulted a fallen table, barking in crisp Veshari. Clear the center, wounded to the walls. Now. His voice cut through the din, not a shout but a command honed by crisis, laced with translation, implant precision. She watched, transfixed, as he multitasked with unnatural ease. One hand redirecting a panicked envoy towards safety, the other snatching a fallen drone's fire suppressant canister. He sprayed a path through the smoke, then knelt by the nearest wounded, a minor lord thrashing in agony. "Breathe steady," Jonah murmured, his fingers probing the gash with triage speed, stemming flow with a torn sash strip, while scanning for more threats. "Pressure here. Hold it." The lord stilled, eyes wide at the human's calm touch. Around him, the crowd parted instinctively. Jonah orchestrated without pause, directing 2 guards to barricade the alcove, triaging a second victim by priority, leg wound first, then arm, while calling out patterns others missed. Drones synced to a signal. "Check the vents." A guard complied, yanking a jammed emitter from the grill, silencing the alarms. In moments, order reasserted, the wounded stabilized, smoke cleared by improvised vents from shattered panes. Zalara's pulse thrummed. Veshari guards trained for precision strikes. Not this. Improvisation amid hysteria. Jonah rose, wiping sap from his hands, expression unchanged. Humble routine, as if herding chaos were mere duty. Courtiers stared, murmurs rising. He saw the emitter before our sensors, treated 3 in the time of 1 rotation. Mira's mandibles clicked in stunned silence, her challenge deflated. Zalara raised a gauntleted hand, halting the proceedings mid-breath. "Secure the hall." Captain Vren, discreet inquiry, traced that signal's origin. No spectacle. Her tone brooked no dissent. But inwardly, fracture lines spidered her composure. Protocol demanded exile for disruptions. Wariness whispered sabotage, aimed at the Alliance. Yet Jonah's competence gleamed undeniable, cracking her aloof facade. Had Mira staged this? Or foes unseen? The captain bowed, vanishing into the shadows. Zalara turned to Jonah, her gaze imperial steel masking intrigue. "Your actions preserved lives, Commander," the court witnesses. Murmurs swelled, his standing elevated, a ripple through faction lines. Mira's allies shifted uneasily. "As liaison," Zalara continued, voice resonant, "you gain limited access to palace operations. Shadow our security rotations. Prove this reliability, the Chancellor doubts." A concession, small but seismic, binding him closer, testing him under her watch. Jonah inclined his head. "An honor, Empress. I'll coordinate with your teams." The reception resumed in hushed formality. Ratification rites intoned, but tension lingered like smoke residue. Zalara observed Jonah integrate seamlessly, querying a guard on drone protocols with adaptive questions that bridged human intuition to Veshari tech. Her wariness evolved, not contempt, but cautious regard. He asked as peer, not supplicant. Hours later, as courtiers dispersed, a sharp chime pierced the guest corridor. Herself en route to private chambers. Guards froze, a sensor pod ejected from a wall panel, scanning an anonymous explosive device. Compact, shielded, timer pulsing faint. Sabotage, direct now. targeting the Alliance's fragile guest. Xalera's scales bristled, mind racing through threats. Mira's purists, rival empires scenting weakness. Exile him, and the treaty crumbled, banish the proof of human worth. No exile, she decreed to her detail, voice low thunder. Place the commander under conditional protection. Detail him to my vanguard, close orbit, full briefings. He stays, under my authority, asserting control yet necessity bound them. His skills her throne, intertwined. Captain Vren saluted. As commanded, Empress. In the lumen wash of the corridor, Zalera felt the shift, a reluctant partnership forged in Breach's fire. Jonah Reyes, once curiosity, now asset, and in dawn's looming light, empires might yet bend together. As her guards swept the device away for analysis, a runner approached breathless. Empress. The inquiry. The signal traces to Accord Adjunct's quarters.
Mira's faction?
Zalera's eyes narrowed, propriety's mask tightening. The game deepened, and her human ally stood at its heart. Zalera's fingers tightened on the arm of her throne as the holographic dispatch flickered into the chamber, its imperial seal pulsing like a predator's eye. The Ketheri envoy's voice, oiled with false deference, filled the air. Empress Vishari, the Concordance observes your unconventional union. Should it destabilize the frontier, our fleets stand ready to enforce equilibrium. A gesture of clarity would suffice. The transmission cut, leaving the throne room's vaulted silence, heavier than Vishari alloy. Her counselors shifted, Mira Varun's crest feathers bristling foremost. A probe, Majesty. The Cathari scent weakness in our human entanglement. Salara's gaze swept them, unyielding. They scent opportunity, Chancellor. Dispatch acknowledgments of our vigilance. No more. Propriety held, but beneath it the calculus shifted. This alliance with Reyes was no mere formality. It was a fulcrum, and the galaxy pressed. Alarms hummed distantly then, a low throb from the palace's core. Technical adepts flooded the antechamber, their exosuits clattering as they scanned readouts. Environmental regulator failing, Lady Chancellor, one reported to Mira. Cascade imminent, air recyclers at 60%. Mira's mandibles clicked irritation. Reroute backups, summon the full cadre. But Jonah Reyes was already there, striding past the cluster without pause, his human frame unburdened by the palace's gravitic haze. He'd bypassed the outer protocols. Zalera noted it from her overlook, his access chit flashing legitimate but unrequested. He knelt by the regulator's access panel, eyes tracing conduits with a mechanic's focus, fingers dancing across diagnostic pads and patterns no Vishari tech would intuit. Commander, Mira snapped, interposing. This is restricted domain. Reyes glanced up, expression calm, sweat beading on his brow from hours of prior briefings. Ma'am, the backups are cross-wired for efficiency, but that masks a harmonic flux in the tertiary coils. It's building resonance, full failure in under an hour. He didn't wait for rebuttal, pulling a multi-tool from his belt and jury-rigging a bypass with spare cabling scavenged from a nearby drone husk, multitasking effortlessly. One hand stabilizing the flow, the other logging variables on his wristpad, cross-referencing palace schematics he'd memorized in a single shift. The adepts froze, their probes redundant. One murmured, impossible. He diagnosed without full-spectrum scan. Jonah straightened, sealing the panel. Field repair holds it steady. Full recalibration needs dry dock, but this buys us days. No evac needed. His voice carried no boast, just the quiet assurance of a man who'd pulled colleagues from vacuum breaches before breakfast. Mira's feathers flattened in reluctant assessment. How did you foresee the flux? Patterns, Reyes said simply, wiping his hands. Coils hum at odd harmonics under load. Same as our old haulers. Bridge the secondary with a resistive shunt, and it sings steady. He met her gaze levelly. No arrogance, only the humility of shared labor. Solara watched from the shadowed dais, her pulse quickening, not from the near catastrophe, but the human's effortless pivot. The Shari techs trained cycles for such diagnostics. He improvised in crisis, weaving alien systems with innate creativity. Her own reassessment stirred. Risks layered deeper than court whispers. By night cycle she ordered it herself. The quiet audit of palace systems, bypassing Nira's channels. In her private sanctum, surrounded by holographic webs of infrastructure data, Zalara traced the anomalies herself. No fanfare. Her claw's input overrides, revealing subtle degradations the adepts had glossed. Unplanned, intimate labor for one whose hands ruled fleets, not circuits. It confirmed Reyes's red, and her growing unease with palace vulnerabilities. The human had pierced them first. She summoned him then, voice modulator set to sealed channel. Commander Reyes, attend me in the inner vault. Infrastructure matters demand consultation. No courtiers. Propriety cracked just enough for candor. He arrived promptly, uniform crisp despite the day's toil, entering her private chambers with a bow that honored without obeisance. The vault's air hummed with regulator echoes, walls aglow with tactical overlays, fleet dispositions, palace vitals, Cathari border flares. Your repair stabilized the core, Gazara said, gesturing him to the central hololith, her tone regal, yet laced with professional regard. Explain your methodology. Full. Reyes nodded, stepping close. Close enough she noted the steady rhythm of his lesser lungs, unlabored after endless shifts. Majesty. The Shari regulators prioritize surge capacity, right? Humans build for endurance, redundancies that flex under stress. I multitasked the scan, visual harmonics, thermal bleed, and load logs simultaneously, connected it to fleet patterns from your briefings, same flux in the border sats. His fingers sketched air gestures, syncing the hololith to simulate the shunt, adaptability incarnate, bridging domains no Vishari mind leaped so fluidly. Zalara leaned in, her multifaceted eyes tracking his logic. Amazement flickered internal. Humans juggled complexities as breath. You bypassed adepts. Risked censure. Time was the risk, Empress. Teams save lives. Hesitation costs them. Humble, resilient, optimism grounded in scars she glimpsed on his hands. Their dialogue deepened, tactics unfolding. How his shunt integrated with Vishari shields, novel hybrids born of mutual input. Distance eroded, not in sentiment, but shared acuity. She found herself contributing evolutions, his questions drawing her strategic depths. Respect kindled, professional yet personal. The chamber doors hissed open unbidden, Mira, escorting a figure in ornate armor. Lord Cale Draven, rival suitor from the conservative houses, his lineage etched in blade scars, backed by a phalanx of traditionalists. He knelt with flourish. Empress, the houses offer my sword for this alliance. A true Vashari bulwark against Cathari shadows and unfit whispers. His gaze slid to Reyes, insinuating, legitimacy demands purity of blood and command. Mira's satisfaction gleamed. Courtiers murmured assent, the challenge public, laced with faction barbs. Xalara rose, authority a blade unsheathed. Lord Draven, your offer honors tradition. Yet alliances forge in capability, not heraldry alone. Her voice cut the air, propriety ironclad. Turning to Reyes, she continued seamlessly. Commander, your oversight of infrastructure proceeds under palace sanction. Adepts report to you. Repairs integrate your protocols. Gasps rippled, Mira's mandibles parted in shock, Draven's crest spiking fury. Reyes blinked, then inclined his head. Honored, Majesty. We'll collaborate. Your systems, my tweaks, Draven surged. This human? Overproven houses, proven indeed. Zalara countered, eyes locking his. Dismissed. The Lord withdrew seething, Mira trailing with veiled calculation. Alone again, Solara faced Reyes. Tread carefully, Commander. Factions circle. He met her gaze, pattern reader of courts as well as coils, understood. But together, we hold. Emotional intelligence shone, reading her subtext, offering partnership without presumption. In the vault's glow, formal veils thinned further. Her human ally's competence was no anomaly. It was the edge her Imperium needed. The game deepened, but now with equals at the board. Chancellor Mira Varun's voice sliced through the vaulted chamber like a vibro knife, her crest-flared head held high as she slammed her data slate onto the council dais. The provisional engagement stands as an affront to the sacred lineage. I call the vote now. Annul it. Or watch our Imperium fracture under alien novelty. Zalara's fingers tightened on the arm of her throne, the obsidian carvings biting into her scaled palms. The council hall thrummed with factional tension, rival suitor Lord Cathar's supporters rising in a ripple of indigo robes, their tails lashing in unison. Neutral voices wavered, the split evident in the holographic tally flickering to life, 42 for annulment, 38 against, the rest abstaining like cowards in the storm. Mira's eyes locked on hers, triumphant gleam barely veiled by protocol. She could end this with a decree, her imperial veto absolute, but to wield it now would paint her as puppet to the human gambit, yielding ground to Mira's traditionalists before the external fleets even sniffed weakness. No. Transparency first. Force their hand into the light. "Rise the evidence, Chancellor," Solera commanded, her voice a silken thunder that stilled the murmurs. "You decry novelty without proof of peril. Present the lineage breach in full view, or this vote dissolves into whispers unfit for empire." Mira's mandibles clicked once, a flicker of irritation, but she complied, projecting ancient edicts across the chamber dome. The council leaned in, tails coiling as clauses scrolled. Ritual purity, succession oaths, the peril of off-world bonds diluting Vishari blood. Cathar's faction nodded fiercely, but Accelera noted the cracks. Two neutrals shifting, eyes darting to the human envoy seated at the periphery. Jonah Reyes met her gaze steadily, his posture relaxed yet alert, no trace of the vault's shared secrets in his expression. He had not spoken, yet his mere presence amplified the divide. Before Mira could press the tally, the chamber shuddered, alarms wailed, a low, piercing keen that dropped every tail flat. Hollow screens erupted in red. Intruder breach, eastern wing, security drill compromised, active threat. Zalara surged to her feet, heart rhythm spiking as guards flooded the exits. Not a drill. This was no coincidence, timed to chaos amid the vote. "Commander Reyes," she snapped, authority brooking no delay. "Coordinate palace defense. Now." Jonah was already moving, his human frame cutting through the milling counselors with predatory economy. "On it, Your Majesty. Perimeter teams report status visual and bioscans. Lock down all access vents." His voice carried via comlink, calm amid the panic, as if herding a routine patrol rather than repelling shadows in her sanctum. From her vantage, Solara watched him pivot, barking orders to a stunned Vishari captain whose scales had paled to ash gray.
You reinforce the throne room bulkheads.
Double sentries on the royal wing, flankers, thermal sweeps for cloaks. Jonah multitasked seamlessly, one hand syncing a tactical overlay on his wrist unit while directing two squads via gestures, reading the palace schematics she'd shared in confidence like he'd walked these halls for cycles. The infiltrator struck then, two cloaked figures bursting from a service grate, plasma lances igniting in the dim light. Counselors screamed, diving for cover as bolts scorched the air. Jonah dropped into a roll, drawing his sidearm with fluid grace, firing precise bursts that shattered one assailant's cloak. "Suppressing fire left. Captain, your team pins right, flush him out." The Vishari captain hesitated a beat, mandibles agape at the human's audacity, then obeyed. Together they advanced, Jonah weaving between marble pillars, anticipating the second intruder's feint before it uncoiled. He vaulted a balustrade, tackling the figure mid-leap, his endurance unflagging as they grappled, human muscle against Vishari sinew, ending with a chokehold that left the foe limp. Silence fell, broken only by the whine of cooling weapons. Jonah rose, wiping blood from a shallow gash on his forearm, expression unchanged. Threat neutralized, casualties, none. Sweep the vents, expect more. The council stared, tails limp in shock. Mira's crest had flattened entirely, her data slate forgotten. Zalara descended the throne steps, her robes whispering authority. "The vote awaits evidence, Chancellor. But first, Commander Reyes coordinated this defense with precision no drill could forge. His leadership turned infiltration to ash." She turned to the chamber, voice resonant. "Esteem him as you would any blade of the Imperium. Dismissal now would blind us to proven steel." Murmurs swelled into approval, Cathar's faction subdued as the tally reset, annulment faltering at 34. Jonah inclined his head to her, a subtle acknowledgement passing between them, formal veils thinning further in the adrenaline's wake. But the respite shattered hours later, in the shadowed corridors of the junior wing. Zalara strode toward a routine audience when the blast hit, a concealed charge erupting behind a junior royal official. Lord Terran, who tumbled from his alcove in flames. She lunged instinctively, cackling him clear as shrapnel rained, her scales searing from proximity heat. Smoke choked the air, guards converging too late. Terran gasped, clutching a singed arm, unharmed beyond burns. Assassination. Narrowly thwarted, yet the message screamed. Internal blades turned on the Alliance's fringes. Galara hauled him upright, signaling medics. Who placed it? Unknown, Majesty. He wheezed, eyes wide. Targeted my station near the envoy's quarters. Treachery woven into the palace heart. Fragility laid bare. Mira's faction? Kethar's desperation. Or deeper shadows from the rival fleets probing her borders. She calmed Jonah without pause. Eastern Wing. Now. Residue analysis. Your eyes on it. He arrived in minutes, already scanning with a handheld chem sweeper, multitasking damage assessment while interviewing Terran and clipped Vishari, his adaptability turning phrases she'd taught him cycles ago into fluid interrogation. Detonation pattern suggests insider access. Pattern matches outer rim sabotage tech, not pure Vishari make. Guards nodded, their initial wariness yielding to deference as he connected traces. Residue linking to a disgraced house aligned with Kethar. No accusation, just facts laid bare, his pattern recognition bridging gaps their rote protocols missed. Zalera watched, the human's resilience mirroring her own. Optimism in crisis, not bravado. He joked lightly with Terran, easing the official's shock with a shared sip from a canteen. Pack bonding across scales and skin. The junior's tail twitched in reluctant gratitude. In her private alcove later, as council adjourned in disarray, Zalera summoned them both, Mira included, to witness the alliance phrase under blades unseen. Tradition bends, but does not break. She fixed Jonah with unyielding gaze. Commander Reyes, I appoint you sanctioned royal protector. Duties defined. Vanguard of provisional security, advisor on human Vishari protocols, answerable to me alone. No more shadows, prove this path tempers our steel. Mira's mandibles parted in protest, but Solara silenced her with a raised hand. Jonah bowed precisely. Honored, Empress. We'll forge it together. As he departed to oversee sweeps, Zara felt the shift, authority redrawn, not surrendered. Yet the hook sank deeper. Whispers of a greater test, arms clashing beyond palace walls, forcing her to shield the envoy she'd never meant to trust. The next dawn broke with klaxons anew. Hollow feeds blared, rival suitors' vanguard breached orbital pickets, demanding parley or blood. Jonah stood at her command dais, eyes steady. They're testing us, Majesty. Let me lead the intercept team. Her tail coiled tight. Protect him? Or wield him? The boundaries blurred as she donned armor, fleet signatures converging, equals in the fray, or fracture eternal. Galara's gauntleted claws snapped the final seal on her obsidian armor, the hiss echoing through the command vault as holographic fleet signatures pulsed like veins across the dome. Alarms shrieked, unrest blooming in 3 vassal provinces, not random flares besieged. External hand, she murmured, tail lashing once before coiling disciplined. Exploit the treaty's shadow. Chancellor Mira Varun's hologram flickered at her elbow, frills erect in outrage. Majesty. The agitators chant purity. Your alliance with the human poisons the bloodline. Recall the fleets, let the legions crush them by right. No, Zalera's voice cut like a blade through silk. They coordinate too precisely. Intelligence confirms it. Krelar Concord agents, whispering through our borders. Her gaze fixed on the human at the vault's heart. Commander Jonah Reyes, bent over a splintered data lattice scavenged from a saboteur's drone. His fingers danced across alien glyphs he'd mastered in days, eyes narrowing as patterns emerged. Jonah straightened, wiping sweat from his brow without pause, voice steady amid the chaos. Empress, it's a web. Saboteurs piggybacking human trade routes. Our freighters' civilian manifests mask their jumps. They're funneling arms to the provinces now, timed to hit during the treaty ratification. He projected a glowing lattice, roots twisting like veins from the core worlds outward. We interdict here. A claw tap isolated a nexus, civilian logistics rerouted as bait. My people can spoof the signals. Your interceptors pounce blindside. Mira's hologram bristled, scales rippling. Human routes? You presume to redirect Imperial traffic? This risks exposing trade secrets and severs their lifeline. Xalara silenced her with a raised talon, studying Jonah's map. Risky, yes. Scandal if freighters scattered. Accusations of favoritism to the outsider. But the precision, humans saw threads where Veshari's blurred. Approve it. Full interdiction. Divert the 3rd and 7th fleets. Mira's frills collapsed. Majesty. Obey, Chancellor. Propriety held, but Solara felt the crack. Trust in this human sight, unproven yet undeniable. She turned to Jonah. Joint command. You at Tactical Corps, I oversee from the vanguard. We strike as one. His nod was simple. No triumph, just readiness. Understood. I'll sync the manifests now. He dove back in, multitasking feeds from 3 consoles, voice relaying orders to human pilots light years distant while adapting Vishari encryption on the fly. Zara watched, a flicker of unease yielding to calculation. Equals, perhaps. The vault thrummed as fleets warped into position, interdiction nets snapping taut. Provinces quieted under the noose. Saboteurs snared mid-jump. Kreller freighters venting plasma in surrender. Victory hummed. Tentative. Then the capital shuddered. Explosions ripped through the undercity. Not unrest, but precision strikes. Shield generators felled. Palace wards breached. Hollow feeds erupted. Mira's factionals in gilded armor storming the treaty hall. Banners proclaiming dynasty unstained. Sabotage from within, ignited by the interdiction's glare. Coup. Kalara growled. Armor servos whining as she strode to the central dais. Jonah was already there, pulling security overlays, his face calm amid the red flashing alerts. They're fracturing the core districts, he said, fingers blurring across panels. Nears led them, rerouted Legion reserves to her banners. Treaty delegates trapped, your throne room next. Zara's crest flared, rage tempered by steel. Mira, loyal shadow turned blade, her warnings a veil for ambition. The Empire teetered. Lose the treaty, vassals revolt, kill the human envoy, invite galactic scorn. Evacuate the delegates, seal the vaults. A calm burst, Mira's voice, triumphant, majesty. The stars reject your dilution. Step aside. Tradition endures. Zalara's talon slammed the broadcast. Chancellor Varun, you fracture what you swore to forge. Stand down, or fall. Silence, then blaster fire echoing through vents. Drones swarmed the feeds, loyalists clashing with traitors in the spires. Jonah glanced up, eyes meeting hers without flinching. We hold the tactical nexus. Reroute power to the palace grid. My teams can jam their comms using the trade route spoofers. Buys time for your vanguard. Risk layered on risk, but his calm anchored her. Humans endured, she noted. Hours plotting without falter, reading the court's venom where her spies had missed. Do it. She keyed the Imperial channel, voice broadcasting empire-wide, unyielding. Subjects of the Vishari. I, Salara Vishari, affirm the alliance. Commander Rhea stands under my aegis. His blood is ours. Traitors fracture the whole. Join me, or perish divided. Gasps rippled through the comms. Public protection of the human. Unprecedented. Whispers of sacrilege clashed with loyalist cheers. Her tail coiled. Not in doubt, but resolve. Fallout would come, but stability first. Alarms peaked as coup forces breached the outer vault. Jonah multitasked seamlessly, jamming Mira's signals while plotting counter routes for reinforcements, even patching a Vishari drone mid-flight with improvised code. Grid secure. Your fleet's inbound. 2 minutes. Xalara drew her plasma lance, standing shoulder to shoulder as blast doors buckled. With me, Commander. No deference demanded, none given. Equals in the breach. The doors exploded inward, Mira at the fore, frills ablaze with zeal. End this folly, Salara, the human taints. Zalera lunged, lance humming, Jonah at her flank with a scavenged pulse rifle, covering angles her guard missed. Blasts scorched armor. She parried, struck, her mind cataloging his moves. Adaptable, anticipating Mira's feints where tradition-bound warriors lagged. A traitor's shot grazed Jonah's pauldron. He didn't flinch, returning fire while directing drones via wristlink. Mira lunged, claws raking.
You shield him?
For what? For the Imperium. Solara countered, driving her back. Jonah flanked, disrupting her guard's formation with a pattern only he saw. Trade route echoes turned to chaos. Mira staggered, loyalists surging to overwhelm. Fleets converged outside, thundershakes rattling the vault. Reinforcements poured in, coup banners crumpling. Mira fell to knees, captured, her gaze locking on Jonah with dawning fracture. Not contempt, but unwilling awe. How a soft skin reads the weave? Zalera sheathed her lance, breath steady. He sees what we overlook. Secure her. To Jonah, the provinces hold, the treaty endures. He nodded, stowing his rifle, a faint smile cracking fatigue. Team effort. Propriety mended, but changed. Formal lines blurring into reliance. Her tale uncoiled fully. Partnership forged in fire, not decree. The Empire breathed, stronger for the human thread woven in. Yet as Mira was led away, her whisper lingered. They'll come for more. External shadows loomed, but now, Zalara's throne room thrummed with the low growl of assembled lords, their scaled hides rippling under the weight of unspent fury. She rose from the dais, her voice cutting through the din like a blade through silk. The coup is crushed. Chancellor Mira Varun stands accused. But hear me. The Council's demand for clarity on the alliance and succession endures. Speak your rulings now, or forever bind them to silence. Lord Kresh of House Thalor surged forward first, his crest flaring crimson with barely contained outrage. Empress, the ancient codes forbid alien consortship. To wed, Commander Reyes invites chaos to the bloodline. Rule now, dissolve the pact, or we fracture the Imperium ourselves. Murmurs swelled into a roar, holographic displays flickering with petitions from a dozen houses. Zalara's gaze swept the chamber, steady as the void beyond her palace spires. Internally, the weight pressed. Tradition had armored her rule for cycles, yet Jonah's quiet competence had pierced it. She signaled her aides. Summon the human. Let evidence, not echoes, decide. Jonah Reyes entered without flourish, his human frame unadorned save for the Vishari commendation band at his wrist, a relic from the orbital rescue that had bound their fates. He carried no scepter of office, only a compact data slate pulsing with encrypted streams. Clara watched him closely, her limited view attuned to his every micro-gesture, the subtle roll of shoulders easing tension, eyes scanning the Lord's crests for tells of allegiance. He had spent the night sifting coup remnants, cross-referencing financial webs she deemed impenetrable. Empress, Jonah said, voice even, translator weaving his common into flawless Vishari cadence. With your leave, I present the financiers. He activated the slate, projecting a web of transactions across the chamber's vast holodome. Lines snaked from Mira's accounts to shadowed off-world vaults. Korvath Consortium credits funneled through neutral relays, masked as stability donations. Jonah's fingers danced across auxiliary controls, multitasking feeds from 3 Imperial auditors and 2 human forensic algorithms he'd jury-rigged overnight. Pattern here. Mira's faction received 47% more than declared. Cross-domain match, same cipher used in the Lysera border skirmishes 3 cycles past. External meddlers, not internal dissent. Lord Kresh's frills collapsed in shock, a physiological stutter Exalara noted with grim satisfaction. Impossible, he rasped. Our vaults are sovereign sealed. Not to someone who multitasks like this, Jonah replied humbly, as if reciting a maintenance log. Humans train for endurance in data dives, 12 hours straight, no fade. Linked it to public shipping manifests. Aliens wrote filter those. He didn't boast. His tone held the patient humility of a mechanic explaining a fix. Yet the assembly stirred, crests flickering from red to amber. Dismissal yielding to calculation. Zalera felt the shift in her chest, a crack in the Imperial facade. Jonah's adaptability wasn't spectacle. It was work, relentless and unassuming. He'd learned their fiscal glyphs in days, spotting anomalies her own analysts had grazed by protocol. She convened the tribunal with a raised talon. This assembly is now court of reckoning. The evidence indicts not tradition but subversion. I reject blanket prohibitions on alliance. The codes adapt to threats, as they did against the Vorath incursions, no more. Gasps rippled, but she held her gaze on Jonah, The human who had exposed not just financiers but her own isolation. Publicly, this marked her turn. A sovereign bending right for survival. Privately, it felt like breath after vacuum. Lord Vera of House Sereth leaned in, her voice a silken probe. Then what, Empress? Succession demands purity. Solara descended the dais, propriety fraying at the edges as she faced Jonah directly. Their eyes met, his steady brown against her luminous violet. A bridge forged in crisis. Commander Reyes, you have proven worth beyond ceremony. I offer you the seat of official consort and political partner. Authority defined, co-command of fleets and joint ops, veto on treaty clauses affecting humanity, voice in succession council. Not subject, equal. The chamber froze. Jonah paused, processing not with alien pomp, but human resilience, weighing the offer against unseen costs. Unprecedented. I'd serve the Imperium's stability, not my ego. But equals build stronger than solos. He accepted with a nod. No triumph, just pragmatic resolve. Zalara's pulse quickened. His humility disarmed where flattery failed. Chaos erupted anew. Treason, bellowed Lord Draketh of the conservative sept, his house's retainers clenching plasma lances. We revolt. The bloodline ends here. 5 houses echoed the threat. Crests blazing war red, their fleets already signaling mobilization from orbital docks. Yet Jonah was already moving, slate humming as he patched into the financier's exposed relays. Empress. Live feed. Korvath's pulling support. The holodome shifted. Consortium vault sealing, credits rerouting to neutral space. One financier lord, scales paling, broadcast retraction, meddling withdrawn. Stability pact holds. The external shadow recoiled, immediate threat evaporating like mist. Conservative lords faltered, Draketh's lance lowering as reality bit. Zalara seized the fracture. See? Isolation invites predators. Partnership repels them. She summoned the treaty amendments, her talon hovering over the seal, preserving sovereignty. Her fleets intact, dynasty's ritual core untouched, while etching Jonah's place. Consort's throne beside hers, human ingenuity woven into Vishari might. With a decisive press, she signed. Holograms flared approval, council votes cascading green. The chamber exhaled, crests settling to imperial blue. Jonah stepped closer, voice low for her alone. We did this together. Your strength called the shots, my patterns just connected dots. Solara met his gaze, formality cracking into something warmer, a personal tether amid political storms. And your endurance held when mine wavered. True power, Commander, is not ruling alone. As lords bowed and dispersed, whispers of equal echoed in her mind. She had been born to rule, and learned that true power was finding one. The external shadows lingered, Mira's warning a faint echo, but now, with Jonah woven into her core, Zalara turned outward, undaunted. Fleets awaited alignment, greater threats loomed. Yet in this shared authority, the Imperium gleamed stronger, a fusion of ancient right and human fire. Lords filed out, some casting newfound respect toward the human, his unassuming stride belying the feats that had rewritten their world. Zalara lingered, talon brushing his in subtle affirmation, the first crack of propriety yielding to alliance profound. In the quiet aftermath, Jonah reviewed residual data, multitasking post-signing audits with effortless grace. Korvath's fully retracted. Patterns suggest they're spooked by the exposure speed. Zara nodded, marveling inwardly at his psychological resilience. Where Vishari nobles would feast on victory, he pressed forward, optimistic yet grounded. Lord Kresh approached last, crest subdued. Human, your web-weaving shames our rote scribes. We misjudged. Jonah waved it off. Just human normal. Pack bonding gets us through long hauls. Your fleet tactics? We'd be lost without 'em. Mutual nod sealed it. Respect earned, not demanded. Zalara watched, her transformation complete, not diminished, but elevated. The galaxy would test this partnership, but she ruled now with an equal's insight. Humanity's quiet extraordinary her greatest asset.